Hey, this is Lucid Stories. How are you all doing? I hope you listen to this story and relax in your bed. Like and subscribe for more relaxing horror stories. And tell me, from which country are you watching this video? It started with the light in the attic. Lena had just moved into her lakeside cabin, an old, moss-covered structure in the northern woods of Vermont, a place meant to be a creative retreat. She was a writer, after all, and this place was perfect, isolated, fog-kissed, far from noise and phone signals. A narrow lake stretched just beyond the back porch, the water always still, as if time couldn't touch it. On the opposite shore, barely visible through the trees, stood another house. She hadn't noticed it during the daytime. It wasn't on her maps or in the rental listing. No trails led to it. But that first night, around 2 a.m., a single square of warm yellow light flickered to life in its attic window, high, lonely, glowing like a beacon in a sea of black. She stared at it from her window, transfixed, wondering who lived out there in the silence. The house looked old. Abandoned. But the light stayed on. The next night, it appeared again. And the next. She never saw anyone. No boats. No cars. Not even footprints along the soft banks. Just that light, always at 2 a.m., always glowing from the attic. She didn't sleep well. Each night, dreams wrapped around her like vines. Dreams of water filling her lungs. Dreams of whispering voices from beneath the lakebed. Dreams of mirrors that didn't reflect her. She'd wake drenched in sweat, heart hammering, always to that same light still burning across the lake. One morning, she crossed over. There was no boat, so she waded through the frigid water, her boots sinking into silt, her breath fogging in the early dawn. The walk took longer than it should have. Every step forward felt like 3 steps back. And when she reached the opposite shore, she found the forest thicker, darker, quieter than her own. The air felt heavier, like someone had filled the sky with smoke. The house loomed before her. It looked even older up close. 2 stories, all cracked wood and leaning bones. Ivy strangled its frame. The windows were dark, curtains drawn. The door was unlocked. Inside, it smelled like damp wood and old books. No one was there. The furniture was ancient but clean. The living room had a grandfather clock, ticking quietly, though it was missing its hands. A staircase curled upward to the second floor, into shadow. She stood at its base, unsure why her body trembled. The silence was deafening. Then the attic light turned on. Lena nearly screamed. She ran out, panting, heart in her throat, clothes soaked from the lake crossing. She didn't look back until she was back at her cabin. That night, the attic light appeared at 2 a.m. again. Only now, it flickered 3 times, as if in greeting. She didn't sleep at all. The following days were a blur. Time didn't feel right. Her watch stopped working. Her reflection, in certain lights, smiled when she didn't. Her laptop glitched, deleting paragraphs she hadn't written yet, paragraphs that described events she hadn't experienced. And each night, the attic light returned. Flickering. Brighter now. Closer. One night, a noise woke her. A slow creaking, wood on wood, like someone walking inside her attic. But her cabin didn't have one. She followed the sound up to the ceiling trapdoor in the hallway. She didn't even know it was there before. With a trembling hand, she pulled it down. A ladder unfolded. Cold air rushed out. Dust danced like ash. She climbed. The attic was empty. Except for the mirror. An antique, full-length standing mirror with an oak frame, cracked down the center but still whole. As she approached, her reflection didn't match her movements. When she tilted her head, it tilted the opposite way. When she stepped forward, it stepped back. And then it smiled. Her real mouth didn't move, but the reflections did. "You crossed over," it whispered. "Now something must cross back." Behind her, the trapdoor slammed shut. She screamed, rushing back, yanking it open, but the hallway was no longer there. Only darkness. She turned to the mirror. The reflection was gone. Now it showed a room, a different one. The attic across the lake. She was staring into that house. She stepped forward. The mirror rippled like water. And she fell through. She awoke in the other attic. The air was heavier. The wallpaper darker. The windows thicker. She looked down at her hands, they were pale. Too pale. Her nails slightly too long. Everything felt off. She ran down the stairs, desperate to escape, and found herself in an exact copy of her own cabin. But it was reversed. All the furniture was mirrored. The light outside was wrong, too gray. The lake didn't ripple. And across the shore, she saw her own cabin. And in its attic window, she saw herself. Or at least, someone wearing her face. It waved. She screamed. The doors wouldn't open. The windows wouldn't shatter. The mirror was gone. And soon, the house began to change. The walls stretched. The clock spun backwards. Whispers filled the vents. And from under the floorboards, something began to crawl upward. Something that moved like a person but sounded like wood breaking. She hid in the bathroom, sobbing, staring into the mirror above the sink. This time, her reflection stared back. "I'm still here," it whispered. "I'm still here. I'm still here." But her voice was hollow. Distant. Like a radio tuned to a dead channel. Weeks passed, or maybe just hours. Time no longer made sense. She stopped eating. Stopped sleeping. The light in her attic never turned off now. And every night, the creature climbed the stairs, slowly. Patiently. Always stopping just before the attic. Then one night, the door creaked open. She screamed. The figure entered. But it wasn't the creature. It was her, the one from across the lake. The other Lena. She smiled. Her eyes were pitch black. "You let me in," she said. "And now, I'm going to write your story." She pulled out Lena's journal. The real Lena begged. Screamed. Scratched at the floor as the mirror returned, standing in the middle of the attic once again. The other Lena shoved her toward it. The glass shimmered. The last thing she saw before darkness swallowed her was her own hand reaching back, pleading, as the mirror sealed shut behind her. Across the lake, in the original cabin, Lena now sits by candlelight. She writes. She smiles. Sometimes she glances up, toward the attic. And if you ever visit that lake, if you ever rent the cabin on the quiet northern shore, be warned. You may see a light in the attic across the water. It might flicker. It might beckon. But don't answer it. Because once you see the house, it sees you too. The storm came 2 nights after the switch. Winds howled like voices, wailing, angry, dissonant. Rain lashed the lake in sheets, but the water did not ripple. It absorbed everything, like ink soaking into paper. Inside the cabin, the other Lena sat at the writing desk with a candle burning low. Her smile hadn't faded since she crossed. Her pen never lifted. She wasn't writing a story. She was rewriting a person. Each word changed the Lena trapped in the mirror world, rewiring her memories, folding her personality into something more useful. Lena had become a draft, and the final version now lived in the waking world. Across the lake, the real Lena woke screaming. She was still inside the mirror cabin, if it could even be called that now. The house had grown again. The windows moved. The hallways shifted when she turned her back. And now there were others. At first she only heard them, scratching, whispering, weeping. Then she saw the shadows. Thin forms with mirrored faces, crawling between the walls, peering out from under the floorboards. They followed her wherever she went, repeating her name in a breathless, guttural voice that didn't belong in this world. Lena. Lena. Each night, they came closer. Each night, the house sank deeper into itself. The clock had stopped ticking completely. One day, if days still existed, she found a door she hadn't seen before. It was in the basement. She only noticed it because the lights flickered when she passed by. It was small, child-sized, bolted shut from the outside. She hesitated. Then unlatched it. The door opened into blackness. She stepped inside. The tunnel was made of mirrors. Thousands of them, floor, ceiling, walls. Every step showed infinite Lenas in all directions. Some walked with her. Some stood still. Some were not Lena at all, distorted versions with too many limbs, eyeless, bloody-mouthed. One dragged a sack behind her. Another gnawed at her own arm like it was made of porcelain. The reflections never matched her steps. They lagged, just slightly. Enough to unsettle. Then one reflection looked directly at her. Not at her reflection. At her. It smiled. Its mouth was wide, impossibly so, curling to its ears. Then it began to whisper. "You're just a copy now," it said. "She's the author. You're the edit." Lena ran. The mirrors around her warped. They shattered silently. Blood began to leak from the cracks, running across the floor in long veins that pulsed like they were alive. In the distance, she saw a door. Real wood. Flickering light behind it. She ran toward it. Behind her, something began to chase. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Because in this place, turning around meant being rewritten. She burst through the door. The light overwhelmed her. Then, silence. She was standing in her own cabin again. Sunlight poured through the windows. Birds sang. The lake shimmered with gentle ripples. Her computer sat quietly on the desk. The journal lay open, untouched. Everything was normal. Had it all been a dream? She stepped to the mirror. Her face stared back. No distortion. No delay. She laughed, half with relief, half with disbelief. Then she noticed the journal. It was open to a new page. She didn't write it. But it had her handwriting. She returns thinking she's escaped. But the one who left was never the one who returned. The copy doesn't know it's a copy until it tries to leave. Her heart stopped. She turned to the door. It was locked. She rushed to the windows. Bricked over. The candle flickered on its own. From the attic came footsteps. And laughter. Her own. Across the lake, the cabin stood in perfect silence. From its attic window, the light turned on at exactly 2 a.m. Inside, Lena sat smiling in the mirror, scratching another version of herself out of the paper, preparing the next rewrite, waiting. Because someone always comes to the lake. And someone always sees the light. And once they do, they become the next chapter. The day never came again. Time had fractured. The Lena in the mirror house, who once believed herself the real Lena, now drifted through passages that no longer belonged to any geometry, only memory. Rooms rearranged as she stepped. Windows revealed landscapes from dreams she hadn't had yet. Sometimes, the walls whispered her thoughts back to her before she could finish them. Sometimes, they whispered other people's thoughts. She marked the days with scratches on the wooden table by the kitchen. But the marks always vanished. She tried to scream sometimes, but the sound came out backwards. Still, the other Lena watched. From across the lake. From the attic. From every surface that reflected. She was rewriting her, slowly, delicately, turning Lena into something else. Not through violence. But through small, surgical edits to her memories. A smell that no longer reminded her of childhood. A name that no longer felt familiar. A birthday she no longer recognized. Even her reflection had begun to blur, like the face in the mirror was waiting for new instructions. And then came the voice. It no longer whispered. It spoke. Through the wood. The water. The candle. The walls. You left the lake. But the lake never left you. At first she fought it. Tried to write her own name over and over again. But the ink dissolved. The paper burned from the center out. Her handwriting warped on the page until it looked like someone else's. Her dreams changed, too. She stopped dreaming of escape. She began dreaming of the lake. One morning, or maybe night, she woke to find her mirror gone. In its place was a door. Tall, ornate, pulsing gently as if alive. It hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had always been there, waiting for her to notice it. She reached for the knob. It was cold. She opened it. And she saw herself. Not her reflection. But her. Standing in the forest. By the shore. Looking out across the water. Wind in her hair. Wearing the same clothes she wore on the day she arrived. She watched herself walk toward the lake. Then step into it. Then sink. She waited for bubbles. Struggle. There was none. The copy didn't drown. It descended. Gracefully. As if being received. And then the lake turned to glass. And the real Lena. If she was still real, stepped through the door and found herself back where it all started. She was standing on the porch of the lake house. The sun was setting. Birds chirped. The lake shimmered like nothing had ever happened. But something was off. She felt it in her skin. In her blood. The breeze was too quiet. The world too symmetrical. Every branch in the forest was mirrored by another. Her breath fogged before she exhaled. The grass never bent beneath her feet. She stepped into the cabin. It was hers. Familiar. But the pictures on the wall weren't the ones she remembered. Family portraits where faces had been replaced by masks. Smiling, wooden faces. In one of them, her great-grandmother wore the face of the other Lena. In another, a child held the lake in her cupped hands, water spilling from her eyes. Then she saw it. The journal. Still open. Still writing itself. She approached it slowly. The pen hovered just above the page, floating, unseen fingers guiding it. Writing a new passage. Lena returned, but not all of her. The part that remembered love was left behind. The part that feared the attic now calls from it. She walks in both cabins now. One real. One rewritten. But the lake. The lake remembers everything. The door creaked behind her. She turned. No one there. Except her shadow. Which wasn't hers. It waved. That night, the attic light flickered again, across both cabins. And two women sat in two windows, each holding the same journal. Each believing they were real. Each watching the other. Each wondering which one wrote the story, and which one was being written. Then, in perfect unison, they stood. They blew out the candles. And the lake swallowed the light. Some say if you go to that lake, you'll see two cabins, identical, across from each other. But most only see one. And if you're ever near the water at 2 a.m. and see a light in the attic, don't stare. Because that's how it sees you. That's how it begins. That's how the lake writes you into its story. And some stories don't have an ending.